So this is a brief look at our agenda for the day. These words don't do it justice. We have a nice program in store for you. We've been talking with Cara Zirkle for quite a while at George Mason, and she was kind enough to bring up You Do It and You Do It, excuse me, and her colleagues there. And let's go to the next slide so I can introduce everyone. CLO 24, just so we all are clear on who we are a video intelligence company. And so part of what we do is we provide captions and transcriptions, which are some of the outputs of video intelligence. For educators specifically, we provide high quality, cost-effective, compliance-ready captions and transcription. So how does that work in with this webinar? Well, you are all our clients, and we get a lot of questions about accessibility programs. It gave us this idea after we saw the type of questions generated from our clients that, this need for education in the inclusive environments throughout the United States and the world throughout education was really important. And so we've invited a panel of experts. We're working today with Cara Zirkle, IT Accessibility Coordinator at George Mason University, Jacob Bates, Tech Rangers Team Lead Coordinator, Center for Distributed Learning at UCF, and Brad Held. Unfortunately, Brad is not feeling well. He's sick, so he's not making it today. But in his place, very kindly, Karen Tinsley Kim, instructional designer at the University of Central Florida, is on the line, and she's going to be working with Jacob. Even if we don't hear from her too much, thank you for joining us, Karen, and we're really appreciative you could make it on such short notice. And I am Nicole, the one who keeps talking, and I am passionate about accessibility development with high tech and video specifically, and have made this sort of my pet project. So thank you for joining us today. With that, I am going to turn over the presentation to Cara Zirkle. Cara?
Thanks, Nicole. So I just wanted to start out, and I know that sometimes too much information can be overwhelming. So I just want to let people know for when they're getting started on their e-learning and everything, this is a little bit of a time we've done, what's worked for us. It's not going to be what works for everyone, but by all means, feel free. In our notes section, I do some very detailed information. But we really started on looking and working very directly with our distance education office in 2010 when SACS accreditation was actually looked at in 2009. And that was part of the web accessibility. So SACS looked at our web accessibility website, the resources we provided for our distance education and faculty, and it just kind of worked itself in from there. So throughout the years, we've definitely built our way through things. And now here, 2016, we do DE reviews each semester on courses that are accepted into the distance education program. We're looking at understanding online course development at Mason. What we want to look at is the main stakeholders. So with that, you have your academic units that are teaching. These are your teaching faculty. You have your instructional designers that work with your faculty. But then after that, you also have your distance education office or your online office, whatever it may be called, that are working to support all of these other individuals. So these are your main three key offices. And it's really, for us, it's increased the number of programs. It's not just the courses themselves, but our DE office has actually been accepting full courses, full programs. So we're looking at College of Science, the entire program being online versus just a couple classes here and there. So we're starting to see a strong phase and change within that aspect. Our instructional designers had worked with a couple different areas, some models to implement and teach faculty how to teach for online courses. And we worked with instructional designers on that to include accessibility. The very first one is the 4 Ps. It was proposal, production, pilot, and portfolio. That took a 1-year plan. So faculty members would go through this, and after a year, they would have a fully created course that they would then be able to use and teach online. But let's face it, time is money, and we just we weren't able to meet the needs and be able to train all the faculty that we needed by having a 1-year model. So then we changed it to a 6-week model called the Online Course Development Institute. This I took myself, so I can feel the pain of those faculty that also have to go through this. It is a very intense 6-week program, but within the 6-week program, it teaches faculty how to use our Kaltura, which is a video management platform, how to create videos, how to post them. It teaches how to create a module within our learning management system of Blackboard. It teaches how to do various different things, but it looks at the model as well as the theories in which can be taught. And at the very end of the 6-week program, week 6, we focus specifically on accessibility. So we talk about the services which we offer of the free captioning for anything at Mason. We look at document accessibility. We look at web testing and third-party applications. Anything else that might cover that, and those faculty still have to go through and take something that they created in those previous 5 weeks and develop it as part of an accessible format so we actually know they are using what was taught. This is really just an image giving you an idea of those weekly modules, but it was largely driven by our instructional designer and learning services department. So it wasn't even something that our office of ATI was really pushing. We found something that was being done by someone else on campus, and we found a way that we could insert ourselves and help them teach accessibility by us being the ones teaching it. So we were using other services on campus to help support and educate our services, which is a main thing to do within a distance education. It's not something that one group is going to take on and conquer. It's not going to be something that happens overnight. So you really need to find your allies and the offices and departments that pull in to your distance education or even your e-learning in general and work with those groups. With this, it was one fully developed module, and we've seen a lot more progress in looking at it from this perspective. The integration of accessibility. So a lot of times what you'll see is faculty saying, well, I don't understand what Section 508 is, or what's this WCAG stuff, and how do you pronounce it, or what's it spelled, or what's it matter to me? We look at a lot of your roles and responsibilities here on campus, and if you ever visit our ati.gmu.edu website, we actually have under our web accessibility an area called roles and responsibilities. On our main site, ati.gmu.edu, we also have a guidebook for creating digital content, digital accessible content. That is going to be a very large one large document that has about 60-some pages, but they're going to be made up to be fact sheets or how-tos. So if a faculty member is needing to learn how to create an accessible Word document and they're using 2013, they can go directly to that area. If they're wanting to learn how to create an accessible PowerPoint and they're using Mac, it takes them to another section of the guidebook. So this is a very large guidebook, not meant to be read from front to back, but it's really there as a resource for faculty to be able to use to learn what they need to do as they're doing it. So keeping that in mind, we've really tried to break it down to a baseline design consideration for when we're talking with our faculty. So when we're talking with faculty and meeting with them, we're really telling them the very basics of what is needed in order for a student to be able to have equal access. So we're still pulling some of these things from the Section 508 or WCAG, but we're doing it in a way that is better understood and accepted by the faculty members. So it's equal inclusion. Providing descriptions for images. So a lot of times our charts and our graphs, if someone English is a second language gets to see the description of this large chart or graph, it may help them understand it, but it's also tagging it to make it accessible for someone who may be blind or low vision. Same thing within the descriptions themselves, or even marking up a document. If you have a very large document and putting in your headers and marking up the tables, this is going to allow someone to be able to easily go through a document to see what else is there and how to access something. But at the same time, we're pushing it and advertising it in a way that we're helping all students within their learning perspectives. We're helping all students based upon the device in which they're using, whether it's your mobile iOS, your Android, if it's going to be a computer, laptop, whatever, it's going to be able to help within those aspects. captioning for videos or transcripts for audio. Again, it's going to allow it to be searchable, so students can actually go through and search and be able to research and get access to more information online through videos rather than just listening to it. So maybe they're not a very good audible learner. They can always go through and look at these transcripts or captions. And really just the consistent navigation tab order. This is very important just because when a student is going through a new course, and if that course, the structure itself within the learning management system doesn't make sense, then they're going to struggle on not only learning where the information is within the course itself, but they're still having to learn the course material. And I'll cover a little bit more of that here next. So we did a pilot a couple years ago, and that pilot showed us a lot of information. And we're now full force, it's fully adopted. Before I get started, one of the poll questions is, are you currently captioning your course media? So if you could take some time, are you currently captioning your course media? Select yes or no. For any of those who aren't able to access the screen, go ahead and put a yay or nay into your chat screen, and we can still get some information from there. I'll give a couple minutes for that. All right, so we are 50-50. So half the folks are currently captioning and half are not currently captioning. For those who aren't, feel free, shoot me an email. I am happy to talk about our captioning process and how we actually created that within a proposal within our university and got that accepted to where we now caption for free to anyone at the university, and that actually comes from overall university funds. It doesn't come from our budget as well. So I'm happy to go and chat with some of those folks after the fact. We have a checklist that we use here at Mason, and this checklist is going to coincide with some of the things I talk about. It's going to tie in very good with the stuff that Jacob and Karen and Brad are doing at UCF. So with that said, we look at the syllabus and the course readings, the learning management system, the document and video accessibility, and most importantly, what we're starting to see is supplemental applications. We also provide an evaluation document. So that evaluation document is important because we keep the checklist for our internal use, because that's something that we will need. We don't want to give that to the faculty and just confuse them and give them this long checklist for them to try to figure out what it is that we're telling them is wrong with the course or maybe good with the course. So instead, we're actually giving them recommendations and resources, and it's going to look something like what you have on the screen of a priority issue versus an action plan. And we're going to recommend those top areas. And then we actually dive into the document that much more and tell them exactly which modules or documents we looked at or videos, and help them to understand the review process as well as using the tools that we used to help find what we looked at. And I apologize for the view of this because I'm trying to make it accessible for those who are colorblind. Now, saying that, if you look at it too long and you're fully visual, it might give you a little bit of headache. Take my word for that one. But looking at this, what we're really learning from our experiences, we're really lacking the training and education of our free services. 15% of what we found, people just didn't know that we offer free captioning. 43% overall with a combination of creating accessible syllabus, the making sure that hyperlinks are properly named, as well as formatting, structure, and things like that within the Word documents. All of that would be covered under a training for educating faculty for creating an accessible syllabus. That alone would cover 43% of our errors. And then if we would do another training on working with faculty to educate about third-party supplemental material, that would be another 13%. So that supplemental material could be anything from using third-party websites to using publisher PowerPoints, or actually using publisher learning management systems altogether. And those learning management systems are important because some faculty are starting to select textbooks that have an online component to them. And that online component is very unlikely to be accessible. And if it's a requirement in the classroom, then everyone's going to have an issue if we have a student with a disability in the class. So if it's recommended, we get a little bit of that gray area path but it still say it's not equal access because a student wants to use a resource to prep themselves for a quiz and they can't because it's not accessible. It doesn't provide any equal access, it just doesn't have that requirement component that the university may get a slap on the hand for. So we're still having to actively work with our Pearsons, our McGraw-Hills, our Cengage, our zyBooks, publishers like that. I have to say Pearson has really done a very good job in promoting and putting resources towards accessibility. I have multiple contacts for their groups, so if anybody would ever want those also, feel free to shoot me an email for that, and I can provide those. But they've really started to pull together a lot of material, and they're also focusing on some MathML to Nemeth Braille, so you don't even have to be using their books to be able to start using some of their resources that they're trying to provide to make things more accessible. So things to consider for you all. So reviewing the procurement of the supplemental applications. You need to educate the faculty in determining books. There are a couple links that we've used that faculty, if they just know to search an online database to see if there's an electronic copy of that, letting students know that you don't have to purchase just the hard copy. There are electronic versions. If they pick a book, if they have a publisher contact that they work with, then the disability or the accessibility office should also be meeting with those publisher contacts, those sales guys, the reps themselves. So that way you can actually use the reps as your one-stop spot to say, okay, what faculty member are going to be using your books, and with that, what academic areas, and where's the accessibility within those. So you can actually use them as your one-stop gap rather than trying to track down all the faculty that you're working with. Identifying your strategic partners, which I talked about early on. Also, look at your policies and procedures. Do you have any policies on overall accessibility at the university, and does it dive into captioning and document accessibility and where those responsibilities are, what the procedures are, or are there services on campus that can cover some of those things? Is accessibility already integrated into the process? Some folks may be aware of quality matters, maybe something as simple as a rubric. What kind of build off your platform? We use Blackboard, so we have to do a lot of our own training within that aspect. Blackboard does have some overall generic universal design trainings that they have, and this is going to be where it ties in very nicely to Brad and Karen to talk about Canvas and maybe even some D2L. But Kaltura is another one. It's a video management platform to where they have a lot of APIs that will actually work with Captioning and other vendors to ensure easy access and control to make sure accessibility is built in more. So finally, overall, program evaluation. Do you have a process to determine your success and failure? That's really where we started our checklist and created that as our recommendations document, where we're now able to provide that pie chart that I had showed to really see where our successes versus our failures have been. And we have this within a database to where we can actually see year to year what has changed within that aspect. So most certainly you need something to be able to evaluate your training and what you've done versus where you need to focus on, so on and so forth. I'm going to hand everything over to Jacob Bates, who is the Tech Ranger Senior Lead, as well as Karen Tinsley-Kim, who's the Instructional Development Team. They will be going through and talking to you a little bit about what Central Florida has been doing. We've worked with them a few times on some webinars and stuff, and we really we look forward to seeing everything that they're going to be able to build with the programs that they are, because they've definitely been moving forward very quickly. So hand it over to you all.
Thank you. Good afternoon or good morning, as we said before. I'm Jacob Bates, and I have with me Karen Tinsley-Kim.
Yeah, I'm I work a lot with Jacob and Brad, who's not here. I'm kind of the often go-between, so I'll jump in when it looks like a good opportunity.
All right. So you might have noticed that I'm the Tech Rangers team lead, and I'll just tell you a little bit about the Tech Rangers. We're a team of mostly part-time student developers. We have 11 part-timers, and I'm one of the 2 full-timers on the team. And we split our time between course development and software development. And what we really focus on when we're doing course development is accessibility. So we partner with the Student Accessibility Services Department through Karen, and we provide immediate need accessibility to prevent impacts to the students at the beginning of the semester. This is where Brad would come in and talk about the student accessibility services. So I will try to fill in as best I can, but his contact information will be at the end of the presentation. So if any of this is confusing or you have more questions, you can contact him. But basically, say 70% of UCF classes have a student with a declared disability in the class, and we send out an email, and also is it email or letters?
Yeah, it's email letters.
Email letters. So we send out email letters at the beginning of every semester, and we do this multiple times because sometimes it ends up in people's spam folders, or they just they don't see it. So we send those out each semester, and it has a checklist in there, and the instructor goes through the checklist, and they basically, very similar to what Cara was saying, it helps them evaluate the content in their course and just lets us know what should we be looking for.
Yeah, and I would just jump in and say, especially as you highlighted on the slide, that it's we really focus a lot on the first 4 weeks so that we can get the syllabus and hopefully any instructor introductions and things that need to happen, especially within the first week or two, to make sure that those are ready to go from day one, that they're accessible for the students. So that's why we back it up those 4 weeks or so. In fact, we're just now getting ready to get prepared for the summer. It's coming soon. And so those Form Bs and Ds, as the instructors fill those out, I get those responses, and then I filter what needs to go to Jacob's team.
Yes, exactly. One of the things that we did was we would receive the information from Karen about each course, and we would start going through the courses manually and checking for all the accessibility issues we could find. But we kept thinking, well, what if we could help the instructors be proactive about this, so that it basically saves everybody time in the long run, students, the faculty, and us. And we already had an internal tool that we had built to save us some time, and it's similar to the WebAIM Wave tool if you've ever used that. But unfortunately, it was very clunky, and it was really, the output was only useful for programmers, for people who knew HTML. And so we would send that output over to Karen, and then she would have to basically meet with the instructor and go over everything in extreme detail to actually get some useful action items out of it. So Karen had the idea to improve this tool and make it available to instructors. So we applied for the Canvas grant program in 2013, which, if you don't know what that is, Instructure, the company that makes the Canvas LMS, had this grant program where they basically just wanted anybody who was making something cool for Canvas. They wanted to promote making integrations with Canvas, so they were giving out $5,000 and $10,000 grants. So we were like, well, let's put our names in for that, and hopefully we win it. So, well, spoiler alert, we did win the grant, and so we started setting out our plans for what this tool should do and how it should work. So we determined our goals were that it should be self-service, it should be easy to use, the results should be actionable, and it should also educate the instructors on these accessibility issues that they are uncovering so that they can avoid those issues in the future. And maybe, our hope is in the future that the instructors will not even need this tool anymore. Okay, so now I'm going to demonstrate the tool that I'm talking about. So if anyone has issues seeing my screen, then please put them in the chat, but I'll just continue on. Okay, so this is my test course. This is in our instance of Canvas, which we call Web Courses at UCF. And over on the left-hand side here, we have the You Do It link, and this is available to all instructors. It's not visible to students. So if I go into the You Do It tool, as you might have seen in the introductory slide, You Do It stands for Universal Design Online Content Inspection Tool. And because we wanted it to be named You Do It, the content is silent. So, so yeah, we have a little introduction here, just in case instructors stumble upon You Do It, they'll be able to figure out what it's for. We even have a little panel here that shows them what the tool looks for and gives them an explanation, even links to the pertinent resources and guidelines, and also gives an example. So the meat of this application, though, is this area down here where there's an area where you can select which portions of your course you would like to scan. So we usually recommend with instructors that they start with one section at a time. Because it can be pretty overwhelming if you have a really large course, you've been teaching it for years, you run the scanner, you could have thousands of issues with your course, and it's really discouraging to get that. So we usually have them start section by section. But I'll just run this on the whole course since it's a really tiny course. It should only take a couple seconds here. Yeah, there we go. So you can see it. We had 17 errors and 2 suggestions. Now, errors and suggestions are different in a key way. Because this is a computer trying to interpret natural language and inputs by a human, it's prone to false positives. So errors are things that we're pretty sure are issues. And suggestions are things that we're not quite so sure are actual issues, and there are a lot of these that you might just be able to ignore. So it breaks down every single section of your course. I'm actually just going to go down to pages here where I have a particular test page that has some pre-filled out issues. So you can see the first one is image elements should have an alt attribute. We can view the source of this image. You can see there's a picture of me, but it doesn't have any alt text attached to it. So rather than navigating to that page, editing the page, putting in the alt text, instead, we have a You Fix It button down here. And if I click on the You Fix It button, I can go into this field and I can type photo of Jacob Bates. And then I can click Submit. And it has now fixed that issue on the page. And whenever you want to, you can actually just click on the title of the page and it'll take you to it. And for those of you who really want proof, I can go to the inspector and show you that photo of Jacob Bates is the alt text for that element. And likewise, we have errors for changing paragraphs to headings. So this is one we noticed a lot where instructors would bold a line of text instead of using the headings in the editor. We actually have a You Fix It for that one now. This is a slightly older version. This is on our production, but we have that now. We also have no table headers found. So this one has a date and an event column, and those are not labeled as headers. So that we actually have a You Fix It for that one too. So I can go in and I can say I want the first row to be headers, and I hit Submit, and it has fixed that one as well. And then I also have insufficient color contrast. So one of the default reds in Canvas is unfortunately not quite up to the 4.5 to 1 contrast ratio. So we do have a You Fix It for that. Unfortunately, this is an older version of the You Fix It for it, so you can just pick whatever color you want, and it doesn't actually check if your new color is accessible. But that's fixed in the latest version. And then here's kind of a really interesting feature is we are using the YouTube APIs to check YouTube videos to see if they have real captions. So I have this video just embedded in the page, and it actually went in there and it said, does it have real captions? Like it doesn't count the automatically generated captions. So so yeah, that's a really, really useful one. And it also works kind of for Vimeo videos, but it doesn't use the APIs for that one just yet. So it'll always show that as a suggestion that you need to double check the captions on Vimeo videos. And then lastly, we've got link text should be descriptive. So if you've got click here or just a link, it'll remind you, hey, you should probably change the title of that link. So we also, at the very bottom, you might have noticed that UDoIT only scans HTML content. So in the bottom here, we just have a list of all of your non-HTML content that you should go through and review yourself. Now that is one of the things we want to do in the future, is to have some type of accessibility checking for these other types of files, but we're really focusing on the HTML content right now and making that as good as possible. So let's go ahead and flip back over to the presentation. You're probably wondering at this point, how can I get a hold of UDoIT? And I have good news and bad news. So the good news is that it's open source.
There we go.
So yeah, the good news is that it's open source. It's on GitHub right now. If you go to github.com/UCFCDL/UDOIT, you'll find the source code there. It's under the GPL v3 license, but it does require a web server with PHP and MySQL to be running. So if you are not an IT person, you'll probably need to get an IT person from your institution to install it. And I guess the bad news is that currently it is only compatible with Instructure Canvas. Now, we do have one institution that is working on a Desire to Learn port of it, but we currently don't have any Blackboard customers that are looking to port it. But obviously it's open source, so you're welcome to go for it, and I'll try to provide any support where I can. So support for UDoIT is going to have to be a community effort. We released the tool in May of last year.
Yes.
Yes, May of last year, and we haven't actually had that many support issues internally, and the only support issues we've had from other schools, I think we have probably about 30 schools now that are using it. Their only issues are just getting it installed and configured, and after that, they're good to go. So the developers and administrators, we want you to use GitHub to post issues and things like that. And if you're using Canvas, you can go into the accessibility group in the Canvas community, and you can share your experiences, report bugs, request features, just general chat, whatever, and I'm in there. So I just wanted to give a little shout out to the people that worked on UDoIT. It wasn't just me or Karen, it was a lot of people, and we've also had a couple of external contributors that just contributed a few lines of code here and there. But it was definitely a group effort. So assuming UDoIT is compatible with your LMS, would your institution be able to take the time to install and configure it? So that's assuming all factors, like you actually, let's say we had a Blackboard version of UDoIT. Would your institution be able to, or have the time or the funding or any of those things to install and configure it? All right, so it looks like we've got a pretty good group of people that would be willing to install it. 30% yes, 6% no, 38% maybe, and 26% don't know. So that's very encouraging. So I just wanted to put these URLs up here for everybody. If you want more just general information about UDoIT, you can go to our website, which is online.ucf.edu/UDOIT. I mentioned the GitHub link earlier, and then my email is jacob.bates@ucf.edu, and then Brad's email is brad.held@ucf.edu. And Karen, do you want to give out your email?
Sure, I'll give you the hopefully simpler one. It'd be KTINSLEY@ucf.edu.
Yeah. So I don't know if we have any more to our presentation, but not much.
And I'll just throw in that I'm very happy to converse if you're looking for, any support or guidance on working with instructors regarding accessibility. That's a large part of my job now, and I find it a very interesting journey. So if you just want to talk, I'm all for that.
Great, Karen and Jacob, thank you. Karen, I will make sure that your contact information is on the recording, the slides on the recording, as well as any follow-up. Again, thank you for being here today. Great presentations from both Cara and Jacob. I learn a lot from these webinars, and seeing what other people are doing, it's really inspiring. And Cielo 24, obviously we are a captioning provider, and the way we fit into the ecosystem here is we're really trying to build tools that will help, I guess you would say, accentuate what you guys are all doing and working feverishly on. And again, I applaud all your efforts. I think you do it is fantastic. Our own captioning, we integrate with most platforms, as all your captioning providers should. We offer what we know helps our universities providers immensely, which is the ability to have master university accounts as well as department sub-accounts. Moderation. This is big. A lot of universities, TAs will run captioning, or professors would like to have final approval. So we have a lot of services like this for educators. And maybe we don't have an acronym as cool as you do it, but we do have ACLP, which is our custom accessibility captioning landing page. And this provides accessibility homepage, if you will, that Cielo 24 manages for our universities at no fee for anyone. Here is an image of that for you. And so this is our effort to say, hey, here is a one-stop shop. You can come here and you can post whatever you need your campus to know about captioning. We'll have policies linked to any other of your accessibility policies you'd like from a central page. And we're hoping to help. And again, this is free of any charges. So beyond your captioning, we just want to be a resource for you and add on to what is already a major initiative for all universities. It's taking on this inclusive learning. Finally, and what great timing, having met Jacob and looked at you do it, and knowing that they're working with YouTube, we have just launched in beta our UpView product, which has been in beta for a while, and some universities are using it successfully. And here's just a screenshot of it. And what we're highlighting here is search. So essentially, you're looking at a video with a transcript playing below it. This is not a demo, it's just a screenshot. We will provide a demo link. You can see there's a demo link here. And it allows students to interact with the transcript. They can print it, of course, right from the player, and they can share it from point of interest with their fellow students, with their professor. But what's really interesting is the search feature. You can really skip around through any video that you're studying and get to the information that matters. And what I think is probably even more interesting is that you can search through a library of relevant material. So either by a professor with multiple courses that they've created on certain content, or within the class itself, or even across a university. The possibilities are really limitless, and we do allow a lot of customization with this technology. I want to just tell you this, it's free. So anybody who's captioning with us, we are more than happy to let you use UpView to work with you to get it installed and working. I think this is a nice addition to tools like You Do It. Again, this is HTML, so captioning would apply with a tool like You Do It. I know that there are others out there. And again, this is our efforts that we are really trying to do our best and our part to provide accessible learning. And captions are part of that. And while that's our core business, we're really on your team with you, and we're really pleased to be a part of the solution. With that, I'd like to, once again, just thank Jacob and Karen, as well as Cara, for your time today and the presentation. And I'd love to open it up to Q&A. We have a lot of questions. So I think the best way to do this is I'll read them out loud, and Jacob, Karen, and Cara, go ahead and take them. Most of them look like they're for Cara.
And for Jacob.
Oh, and Jacob, okay.
Yes.
I think the first one's for me. Let's see. No, let's go to, okay. Jacob, this one is for you. Is UDoIT available to the public to incorporate into an individual Canvas site? Or is this an admin access application only?
So I guess that's a bit of a complex question because the way UDoIT is set up right now is it's just the source code, and you need to install it and run it on a server, on a web server at some point. But once that is installed and running, you can install this in an individual course if you want to, or you can install it on, we haven't tested it, but I believe you can install it on the Free for Teachers Canvas instances. So I guess the answer is yes and no in short. But yeah, you'll definitely need some type of IT person to help with the installation if you're not skilled in that area.
Okay, great. And perhaps that person can reach out to you directly. Again, all the contact information for everyone will be on this presentation and in follow-up. Does the scan function in UDoIT actually scan inside the files in Canvas? Jacob, this is another question for you.
Yes, that's correct. What it does is it picks up any HTML content. So in the case of your question, any .html files that are in the files area of the course, it will pick those up, scan the content, and give errors there. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the feature, we don't have the ability to scan Word documents or PowerPoints or PDFs. That is something we would really love to do. And we're noticing some other technologies coming up soon that might help us do that, and maybe we can integrate them. But that's not really, we can't really put that on our roadmap right now because we just don't know what the timeline is for it.
I would add, though, that UDoIT will give a readout of those external documents, and you can click on the report and, investigate. That's one of my primary things working with blind low vision is checking to see if relevant PDFs are already accessible or not, because UDoIT's not going to tell me. And so it's much, much easier now for me to locate those files than it was before. So even though it's not quite, UDoIT's not quite doing everything we would love for it to do, it's certainly helping me nonetheless by being able to personally inspect those files and see what their status is.
Okay, well, that's good. Next question. Cara, this is for you. GMU makes accessibility part of Office classes, but how do you get anyone to go to Office classes? People think they know it.
Yes. So that's a two-part question. We work very closely with our Disability Services Office. So any faculty member that has a student registered with the Disability Services in their classroom will receive an email a week to 2 weeks prior to the semester starting, letting them know that there's an individual in the classroom and that we provide basically kind of what we want to call as an orientation for the faculty. And within that, it's a quick hour, half hour, depending upon the disability, of what they need to do and keep in mind. It's not only an education on the services that we provide, but it's also the etiquette and accessibility as a whole. So that's one way of doing it. Another thing is we've really kind of pushed it out to where we don't talk about disabilities or accessibility. We talk about optimizing your SEO, your search engine optimization. We talk about mobile devices and making something designed in a way that it's going to be mobile friendly, because mobile guidelines overlap about 75% of what accessibility guidelines do. So we really try to push it out into other areas like that. And we also still use our allies that are on campus. We provide monthly trainings on different topics all the time, and most of those end up overlapping and people just wanting to talk more about other things. But it really is one of those of people just don't know what they don't know. It's not that they think that they don't need to know it. And that's really trying to find a way to change the mentality and actually make it realize of they just don't know what they don't know. Any listening whatsoever is going to be better than nothing. Us providing services completely free is a good foot in the door for that.
Okay, thanks, Cara. Here's a follow-up. Are tools part of the 71% education and awareness training to reduce problems?
I'm sorry, ask that again?
It says, are tools, TOOLS, part of the 71% education and awareness training to reduce problems? Maybe that's
yes. Since we're using Blackboard, if we had something like the Do It that UCF has, that would take care of a huge issue that some of the areas that weren't being shown, like our structure of our courses, whether or not the links themselves being properly done, things like that. It would cover a lot of those things, but what we also use, since we don't have that, is we promote and push a product called Common Look Office. We have a site license where it's a concurrent license, so as long as we don't go over X amount of people using it all in the same time, which I don't think we'll ever have for a very low number of licenses, what we do is we actually do individual trainings on what that software will do as a tool, and it's a plug-in to Microsoft Office, so even if an individual doesn't know how to make a Word or PowerPoint accessible, it's a plug-in, and then it will save it as an accessible PDF. So if that training, they actually say, yeah, this is something that I think I might actually use, and then we'll actually go and install it on their software. And that way we can kind of monitor the use and see how much is actually being used. We also push out, there's a Vision Australia. They actually have a free accessibility toolbar that you can install for Microsoft Office as well. And it'll give you all, it's basically an accessibility toolbar that gives you any feature of adding alt tags, of headers, the structure, tables, anything like that, automatically within the ribbon itself. And so we push a lot of those types of free tools, helping folks make it easier to develop for accessibility.
Wow, great. The next one, oh, it's for me, is UpView available for YouTube? Yes, it is. In fact, I think that's our best user experience. And my contact information is going to be included, so I can walk you through that process. It's actually pretty simple. The next one is there, which university, Jacob, this is for you, and I was wondering, which university is currently using You Do It, the version for Desire to Learn?
That's a good question. I actually don't have that information in front of me right now, and I don't want to just share that just everywhere, because I haven't talked to them about whether they whether they actually plan on going through with it, or I don't want to start talking about them behind their backs. So if you could just email me your question, and I'll give you some more information about those other universities.
Okay, no, that's great. Okay. That makes complete sense. Let's see here. Okay, 16. Canvas users may be interested to see a new accessibility audit of Canvas done by the Access Technology Higher Education Network. And there's a link provided. So that was a comment, and it looks like we'll send that out to everyone. Okay, so approximately, this is Cara, this is for you. Approximately how many course videos are being captioned at GMU each semester?
Each semester. I can give that breakdown information. We do keep record data of that. I don't know it off the top of my head. I do know that for the overall year from July to June, we were close to hitting almost 900 videos. And that is both for distance education, overall web compliance, face-to-face courses, as well as library databases. So if that person wants to shoot me an email individually, I can give them that data.
Okay, thank you. Let's see here. Gosh, there are quite a few. There's a couple requests for URLs that we've shared throughout the presentation. We'll definitely be sending out the presentation, and I like to pull the URLs out, and I'll put them in a separate note so they're easily linkable, clickable, and obvious for you. So just a comment there. Okay, let's see. Which one? Okay, can you please repeat the technical requirements of the tool beside Canvas compatibility? Jacob, this is for you. Great question.
Yes, so the UDoIt tool runs on PHP, and I believe it's compatible with 5.6 and 5.4, that version range. And you'll also need MySQL as the database. Now, if you know what this is, it is also compatible with Heroku. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. But it's that's another platform that you can install UDoIt on.
Okay. I think this is a follow-up we have here. Is UDoIt available to the public to incorporate into an individual Canvas site?
I think I answered that one earlier. But yes, basically, you can definitely do that.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay, have you done any research on the benefits of increasing accessibility for online student success? Wow, this could be for any one of us. Cara, do you want to take a first stab at this?
Direct research, I know that we've done some surveys each semester to see if there's any improvement from both a student as well as a faculty point of view, to see if they have fewer questions, see if more students seem to basically just get it. I know one of the big things that we've seen is tactile graphing. When we had someone totally blind in a very high-level STEM course, the professor was able to hand around the tactile graphs, and a lot of the other faculty or students finally said, oh, hey, I finally get it. But research itself is really hard to be able to get something like that breakdown, because you can't, there's some variables to it to make sure that you have all of the students versus some of the students. We go ahead and survey the students that are registered with disability services versus all of the students, and so on and so forth. So if the university is set up that way and you can get that support, it would be a great area to look at.
Okay. Jacob, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, for the UCF side of things, I don't know of that research directly, but if you contact Brad Held at his email address, he'll be able to give you a better answer on that.
Got it. Yeah, there's a lot of independent research going on out there. So there are some, it's a great Google topic for sure. And I know Brad did mention something about it to me on a phone call, so he'd probably be a good resource for that. All right. Okay, yeah, Jacob, I think this is for you. Is there a similar tool available for Blackboard Learn?
I mean, honestly, we don't use Blackboard Learn anymore, so I don't really know. I know there is another tool coming out. I believe it's just called Ally, and it's very new. But unfortunately, it's also for Canvas. Unfortunately, to the person who asked the question. So I guess the short answer is no. I don't really know of any others.
Okay.
For Blackboard.
We do use Blackboard, and the only thing we are aware of at Mason is their Universal Design and Accessibility course that they have provided, that you can actually pull into the course listings to where people can go ahead and access and use that for free. But it's not necessarily a tool to help design like the DoIt is. If we had something in Blackboard that was like the DoIt for the Canvas, we'd be in heaven.
It's a beautiful tool. Okay, so next question, interesting. Okay, if it was LTI, we could spin up a server to run it. We don't have time to port it. Any comment on that, Jacob?
So yeah, that's a tricky one, because it is an LTI, but but to get all the functionality we needed, we had to use the Canvas specific APIs. So the process of porting it over to Blackboard or another platform would really be converting those API calls to whatever your LMS is. Now, in the future, the LTI2 standard is promising to have a way of accessing APIs for the target or for whatever LMS you're running in without basically abstracted. So we have some hope with the new LTI2 standard, but we're not holding our breaths because these things can take years to finalize.
Okay, that's great. I've got a lot of people who want more information here on You Do It, so we'll definitely have to follow up with more on that. Okay, Jacob, you may know a great answer to this one. What is the difference between You Fix It and You Do It?
Okay, so You Do It is the tool itself. That's the tool that scans your course and finds the possible issues. You Fix It is just a tiny little piece of You Do It, and what that does is it allows you from the You Do It interface to fix the accessibility issue on whatever page or piece of content the issue is found. But basically, You Fix It lets you do it from the You Do It tool.
Okay. And we're running 10 minutes over, so this will be our last question, but is You Do It commercially available product or one that was developed in-house?
You Do It was developed in-house. It does use another open source library for some of the accessibility evaluation. We've since extended that library to add our own, and it's called Quail is the other library. But no, it was never, it's not based on a commercially available product. It's not commercially available. It's everything in every piece of code in there is open source. And the parts that aren't Quail were developed by us.
Okay, fantastic. Actually, I just want to sneak in one more question. It's for Cara. We just got it in. Is GMU course evaluation instrument something you would share?
I did see that one from Jay. Is that from Jay or is that from someone else?
Is that, let's see.
I had responded to Jay, that's the only reason I asked.
Yeah, timing so is a little funny.
So have them contact me offline. That's not a simple answer.
Okay, and it is from Jay. So if you've talked to him, fantastic.
All right. Yes, I've already responded to him.
Well, thank you everybody for the rich Q&A. Cara, Jacob, and Karen, thank you for your participation and your contribution. It's been a fantastic talk. I've learned a lot. So everyone have a fantastic day, and we will follow up with a captioned, recorded, transcribed webinar in the UpView player as well. So you'll be able to play around with it. And have a fantastic day. Thank you.